get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today I'm joined by Dr. Severine Bryan, Accredited Financial Counselor and host of the Dr. Sev Talks Money Podcast. Sev, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What is your origin story and how did it inspire your motto, anything is possible with a plan?
Well, I've always had an affinity, a bent towards money. In fact, when I was 16 years old, my dad added me to his bank account, and I was not the oldest child. So, because he said I was very responsible with money. And so I've always, every organization that I've been a part of, I've somehow been tagged into being part of their finance committee. In the church, I was the stewardship director. And so I've always had that. And of course, in my corporate job, I was an accountant before I retired. But I was teaching and posting about personal finance all along until, of course, I went through a divorce. And that created more intentionality behind the personal finance, making sure that, yes, I was saving, but I was just saving. There was no intention behind it, no plan as to, well, what do you want what to happen with this money? It was nothing like that. And then my score dropped because I walked away from my house, dropped into 500s, and I walked away from my house because of that. My score dropped in the 500 into the 500. And so I was able to rebuild my finances, bought another home, and all of those things really lit a fire under me because now I realized that because I had a plan and because I worked with a coach, I was able to rebuild my finances. And so I want to help people understand that if you put a plan together, your goals can be realized, because money is really just math. It's grief, it's ego, it's cultural expectations, all those things. And I've experienced all of those. So I want to help my clients understand that, it's bigger than just the math behind the money. And that really compounds why I move beyond information and into coaching. Because again, I want my clients to understand the power that they have over their money.
Ooh, I think that is so important is that we do have power over our money. But as you point out, it's important to have the intention with our money, is so many of us sort of let our money run on its own, uh, without putting those goals as you put in. So everything you're talking about, I think is so important. So, let's dig a little bit deeper here, because you talk a lot about the psychology. What led you to focus on the psychology behind financial decisions?
I found that we all know what to do. I know I'm not supposed to eat too many pieces of bacon because it will mess up my cholesterol. I know I'm supposed to, there's certain things I know I'm not supposed to do health-wise. And it's the same with our money. It's not that we don't know what we need to do with our money, but there's something else at play. There's another force behind why we don't make the choices that we want to make. We want to make those choices. And so it got me interested in the psychology, the why. We know the how. Yeah, we know how to do a budget, but why don't I do it, even though I know I need to do it? And that caused me to really start digging because understanding the why behind it and the what behind our actions, I think will help us to do the thing we want to do. And so there is a reason why I focus so much on the psychology behind financial decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. And that was something I learned over my career is that, I'd work with people and make recommendations, and they were educated people who were able to, follow along, and they definitely knew and understood the issues, but yet they would make decisions that were just puzzling, which is one of
Yeah.
the reasons why I started this podcast is I really, like you, became really curious about what was driving these financial decisions.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it sometimes it's really fascinating when you work with clients and you uncover, you have these conversations and you realize, and they realize actually more than I realize because I'm not living with the decisions, right? They are. And so it's really fascinating when they discover that, ah, that's why. Going back to my origin story, the way I was socialized to money. That's why I'm making those decisions. I didn't realize how subconsciously those things affected me. And so now I can put up some guards, some guardrails, and those guardrails will help me to say, you're making an emotional purchase right now. So what are the things that you put in place to stop that? And so seeing my clients, their eyes open and they get the when they get the realization, it is so fascinating and so satisfying for me.
Yeah, well, I think you said something in there. It's important is in the buying is that something that's changed with the internet is the friction is, when I was a kid, if I want to buy a record album, you know, dating myself is, I had to go to the bank when it was open, withdraw the money, somehow get myself over to the record store and pay,
I know.
and pay for the record.
Yeah.
And there was friction. So it wasn't, I had to really be vested in buying that record.
Yeah. And most times when you got there, you're like, oh, I don't want to buy the record anymore. Because
Exactly.
there are there's space between the decision and the purchase, right? And that space allows us to think, do I really want this thing or am I buying it because I'm tired, I'm hungry, or whatever the emotion is. But as you said, the friction is almost non-existent these days. So as soon as you have the thought, you do the thing because it's available on the internet.
Exactly. And then you have the record in a half hour.
If
If
that
it,
long, right?
and surprisingly, records are making a comeback, but that's a whole nother topic. One of the things that you talk about is focusing on who we are becoming. So, why should people focus on who we are becoming rather than who we used to be?
Well, I actually like to focus on who I am rather than who I'm becoming because I find that
Okay.
when I focus on who I'm becoming, then I may be comparing myself. Because if I focus on, okay, I want to retire at 65 with $1 million because, that's the thing these days. And I'm so focused on that that I don't enjoy now. I don't enjoy the daily things that will help me get to that $1 million. And so I have decided that I'm instead of focusing on the past or the future, I'm focusing on now. What are my values? What are my goals? How can I live those every day? Because when I do that, the becoming will happen automatically. So I focus on how can I maximize right now because the data that I get from yesterday is going to help me live a better life today, which in turn will help me become a better person. So that's one of the things I really want to focus on is now, what can I do now to live my values, to live my goals in a way that is ethical, in a way that supports my visions, and then that in turn helps me to realize the person that I want to be at the end of the day.
That's powerful. And I think one of the things you said is about enjoying the daily things is that's oftentimes lost as, I've had on people who,
Yes.
part of the fire movement, financial independence, retire early, and they really regret that they gave up all of their enjoyment to compress, their savings goals. So that's like really interesting because I think people don't realize that is that, that you do need to enjoy the journey as
Yes.
much as crushing for your
Yes.
goals.
Yeah, because I think the journey is bigger than the destination, because the journey is where you learn, you fall, you fail, you get the lessons, and the lessons, the diamonds are in the lessons, and so during the journey is where you are really growing, you're becoming. It's all in the journey. It's not we're so focused on becoming this person or achieving this goal so much, and I've been there. So I'm not even talking from just a theoretical standpoint. I've been there where I've been so focused and I looked up and I'm like, wow, I'm 30. What did I do in my 20s? I'm 40. What did I do in my 30s? So I'm trying to get my daughter to be more intentional also, because the time goes by whether you do or don't. So being intentional and being focused and being strategic, I think, will help us maximize now. And before you know it, you are that person that you want to be at the end of the day.
Mm, I love that. I'm just making a note because I want to make sure I get that into the show notes. I love that. Because that is really it is, there is a now, but it's how do we get to the person we want to be? And it's a constant thing. And you mentioned earlier that our values are an important part of this as well. Sometimes we don't think that we can align our money with our values, but it's a much happier life when we're aligning with our values. So, one of the things you talked about is that, after your divorce, you had a financial setback. I mean, that happens during life transitions. What's your advice for people to rebuild after a financial setback? What was helpful for you?
I think the first thing and this is in hindsight, because when I was in the chaos, it was a different thing. But in hindsight, is sitting back in processing the event, whether it's a loss of a job, a divorce, or a death of a spouse, whatever it is, really taking the time if you can, because some of us can't. We have young kids or whatever it is. We are caught up into making sure they're okay. But if you can, take an opportunity to sit back and process the event. And then based on processing that, look around you at your resources. What do you have financially? Do you have a network of people? Do you have money in the bank where you can really, if you lost your job, you can take a month off to really process that? Because all the losses come with grief. All the losses come with anger, it comes with exhaustion, it comes with all these things. And so we need to be able to process that. So that would be the first thing I would tell people to do, is take the time to really think about the thing that has happened and look at your resources, look at your network, tap into your network. And they say build a bridge before you need it. Always be looking at your network. Always be looking at the people that are around you, and not just when you want something. Because when you build that strong network, something happens, you have a shoulder to lean on. And so you want to look at those things, grieve the loss, but don't dwell there. We tend to want to dwell there, but don't stay there, and be strategic. We have data. Again, data is so important. So when we're going through whatever it is we're going through and we're trying to recover, we have data. So how can we use that data? Maybe it means I hire someone to help me to look through the data and see how can I recover while I'm rebuilding? How can I recover in a way that is not going to cause more issues? And a financial professional, maybe somebody you could hire, because they can have a bird's eye view of what you're going through. And we're emotionally tied to the decisions that we make about our money. We're emotionally tied to all the decisions that we make about our lives. But somebody coming in with no emotional ties, they may be able to see something that you're stressing about that really is not a stressor, once they're able to look at some things with a broader view. And when they point that out to you, you may say, wow, I'm stressing over things that are really non-existent. Because again, we're emotionally tied. So we're going to jump into chaos. We're going to jump into stress because we're in the middle of the thing. And somebody else with a bird's eye view always helps to to separate the emotion from the process. So that's one of some of the advice that I would give someone as they are recovering from a financial setback.
Yeah, and I want to walk back to what you said about a network is, I just did a whole episode on the power of your network. And I think that's something that we tend to underestimate, but our network really comes through for us, either our personal network when we have, a traumatic event like a divorce or, loss of a spouse, but our professional network comes through, in other circumstances. And, an advisor team, if you have advisors, is they do help you because they have, as you mentioned, a bird's eye view. They have a different perspective, so they can really come in and help out. But it is in the power of your network, and as you point out, that you need to build it before you need it. Um,
Yeah. And then when you're on
and
your feet, don't abandon the folks who help you, because we some people tend to do that. I've had that experience where someone needed help and they got the help, but as soon as they were back on their feet, they were nowhere way around. They're nowhere around. So we the network is the network. You keep that network whether you're up or down, because you never know if you're going to be going up the ladder or coming down the ladder. And so you want to still have that network going for you whatever part of the ladder you're on, you want to still hang on to that network and nurture it.
yeah, and I think, and people know that if I think intuitively, whether you're just using them or whether you're serious about
Yes.
being a resource and having a
Yeah.
connection with them and maintaining that connection.
Yeah. Yes, we really do.
So it's amazing. So, one of the things is that, after something like a divorce, sometimes people are filled with shame, or other negative emotions. How do we start to build confidence? How can people move confidence and move forward without shame and judgment after a life event?
Yeah, one of the things I find is that shame hides solutions. It keeps us isolated. And I'm a strong proponent of community. I have several communities for different things. And I have one myself that I have where I'm bringing people in to talk about their money stories and to talk about the shame and the mistakes or all the things that they've done. And it's a no judgment zone. Nobody's allowed to talk negatively about anybody's experience, because we all have those negative experiences, or we all make those missteps. And so I find that community is one of the biggest things that we can have around ourselves, around whatever the situation is. So when we are feeling shame, and it's normal, it's like, oh, don't be ashamed. No, it's okay. If you feel shame, you feel shame. Your emotion is your emotion. But the thing is, what can you do now that you're experiencing the shame? Find a community that's going through a similar thing. If it's divorce, find a community of people who are going through divorce. If it's bankruptcy, find a community of people who are going through bankruptcy, because they may have tips. They may have somebody's going to be further along than you. They're going to have tips. They're going to have strategies. They're going to have resources that you can use. So, you want to be find a community that's very similar to what you're going through, and join that community, because it's going to help to minimize the shame. It's going to help to, for you to realize that, hey, I'm not alone. Because that's one of the things shame does too. It isolates you in a way that makes you feel like I'm the only one going through this. And what's happening lately is the suicide rate around money issues is on the rise, because making a permanent decision about something that's temporary. And so finding that community will help us to maybe see that, hey, yes, this is something that I don't want to deal with, but this person had $1 million that they lost, and I lost 500,000. And it's not only 500,000, it's you lost 500,000, because we're not comparing. But if this person lost $1 million and they lost their business or their home, and they are able to come back. Let me talk to them and see what are some things, what are some mindset things, what are some strategies that you use, what are, that way. That's what community does. It undergirds you, it pushes you, it strengthens you, and it keeps you accountable. So that's one of the biggest things that I would say is find a community that supports or is going through what you're going through. And I promise you that it's going to do wonders for you.
Well, that's great advice. And I think what you say about isolation is that we do feel oftentimes that we're the only ones going through something and nobody else understands, and that pretty much there almost always is somebody who's gone through or is going through what you're
Yeah.
going through.
Yeah, and
So,
therapy helps too. The therapy helps if it's something you can afford. I mean, there are free services for therapy. Find what those are, and again, that's where your network comes in because your network may know people who will do free therapy sessions. So do mantras that look. You get up every morning. The first thing you get up in the morning, you look in the mirror, and you look in your eyes, and you tell yourself, "I am worthy." Things, whatever it is that works for you, do that thing because that's going to help you. I promise it will. And here's another thing that we don't do. We don't forgive ourselves. When we're going through all the things that we're going through and we stay in our shame and we lose our confidence, we beat on ourselves so much. As you're listening to me, you're not the first person to go through what you're going through. I promise you that. So don't beat yourself up. And if you are beating yourself up, try to find some way that will help to build your confidence, whether it's through therapy, as I said before, whether it's through mantras, whether it's a community, find some way to help you remind yourself that you're not alone. Because I think we know that in the back of our minds, but we're so much in the chaos that we tend to not think because chaos again is something that it keeps you so bound that you can't see solutions and so yeah, so those are the things that I would recommend that someone does if they are feeling shame and really needing to rebuild their confidence.
that's great advice. Is that you have to be able to move through it, but you also have to, I guess, face that you are dealing with something. And I think that's the other thing is, but as you point out, is a lot of it is just believing that there is a way through it.
Yeah,
And sometimes it is as simple as just talking to somebody, and sometimes it's just talking to a friend.
yeah.
Therapy, of course, a trained therapist can help you with the more difficult situations, but in a lot of situations, it's just talking to a friend and venting a little bit.
Yeah,
And
and you're not necessarily looking for answers for the most part. And if you're talking to someone and you're telling, "Oh, just get over it already," because I've been told that when I was going through my divorce, "Oh, what get over it." No, no, I process differently than you, and maybe it took you a year to get over your divorce. Maybe it's going to take me 5. Maybe it's going to take the next person 10. So if you find someone who's going to tell you that, "Oh, get over it already," everybody files bankruptcy. Find a new set of friends.
yeah, people are just telling you to get over it.
Yeah,
Not really
yeah.
helpful.
No,
So,
it's not. You need to process how you process, how long you process. Nobody should tell you when you should stop processing.
yeah, I think that's really valuable. And, not only with money, but with life. And money and life are almost always tied in anyway. They don't exist on their own. We may say we have our financial life, but it's really our life, and
Yeah,
money is just a tool. So,
yeah.
Sev, to wrap up, I have what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. These are 3 quick questions I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what's one money myth you're trying to break?
That we need a lot of money to invest. We really don't. There's so many options these days. Investing in a hotel as a group. That's something that I explored and I'm a part of. And I don't have the big bucks. I'm trying to get the big bucks. Okay. So, there's so many, there's ETFs, exchange traded funds that you just put a few dollars in. You can start with $10, $20, $50 and build it up. And then you can buy a fund because it's just a basket of stock that of little pieces of different companies. Index funds, there's so many options. So that's one of the things that I would say that's a myth. There are ways to invest that does not require you to give over your firstborn.
Yeah, yeah, times have changed. Maybe, 30 or 40 years ago, you needed a lot of money to invest. Today,
Yes.
though, like you
Yeah.
mentioned, is you can
Mhm.
open an investment account with a Schwab or any of these online
Yeah.
platforms with a
Vanguard.
very
Yeah.
small amount of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah. Before it was only for the elite, but now we are the elite. We can we can invest how we want.
Exactly, exactly. But take the time to get a little education first. But anyway, that's a
Yes,
whole other
yes,
subject.
yes, yes. Please be careful. Just because it's popular doesn't mean that's what you need to invest in.
Yeah, just because it's trending on TikTok does not mean it's a good idea.
Okay.
I think we can all agree on that. So, Seth, let's get out the time machine. If you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money, what advice would you give your younger self?
Invest early and often. I have had so
Nice.
much money come through my hands, so many times, and I just blew the money because I just never thought about investing as an opportunity or as an option. So that's what I would say to someone: invest often and early. You may never feel ready to invest. You may never get to the point where you're feeling ready, but timing, it never works. Time in the market is better than timing the market. So you want to make sure that you are putting in that $10, that $5, that $20, and start investing.
Yeah, and especially for women out there who may be feeling like investing is not for you. There is an organization, Invest for Better. I've had the founder, Janine Firpo, on a podcast. I'll put a link in the show notes. It's a nonprofit, Invest for Better, where they have investing circles for women. And so that is a great way to get started with other women. If you are a woman, if you're a man,
Yeah,
sorry,
and
I don't have
yeah.
a resource for you right now.
Yeah, I mean, and there are lots of investing circles. There are lots of them. I know there is a story about a group in Florida. They're a group of retired women, and they met every so often, and they were doing really well because they researched companies and they invested in different companies. So yeah, they're investment circles. Again, resources are everywhere. We just need to hook up with people and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. There's nothing stupid about asking a question. Don't let anybody make you feel small for asking a question. If you don't know, you just don't know, and you need to ask. So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm with you. It's all about curiosity. And people who
yes,
watch a show have heard me talk about that a lot, is that it's be curious, ask as many questions as you need to ask to find out what you need to know. And that's always a sign too of somebody who's trying to scam you is they don't want to answer questions or they don't
yes,
answer your questions accurately. So it also helps protect you by asking questions. It is a superpower. So, Seb, to close out, what's your number one tip to change the way we think about money?
yeah. I think the number one thing that I would tell people to change the way you think about money is remember that money is neutral. Money is neutral.
I love that.
Right? Yeah, the number one tip I would tell people is money is neutral. It is not a positive or a negative. And so it's not something to be feared. So rather than avoiding it, because avoiding it may cause more, cost you more than making mistakes with it. So don't avoid it. It only hurts you if you don't try to know more about it and your power over it. Again, it's neutral.
I love that. I love that. And I think that's so important for everybody. As you point out, it's not positive or negative, is money is what we put into it, in terms of our emotions and our feelings and everything else. So, Seb, where can people learn more about you, your work, and most importantly, tune into the Dr. Sev Talks Money podcast?
Well, the best place is my website. I have my podcast linked there. I have my community for women and men where we talk about personal finance. My YouTube, all of it is linked on my website. And that website is sevtalksmoney.com. That's SEV talksmoney.com. So it's the best place to find me.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, if you have access to the show notes, there'll be links to Seb's community, website, and podcast in the show notes so you can check them all out. Sev, thanks for joining us today on Get Ready Before Life Happens.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. And if I would want to leave listeners with this, I rebuilt my finances from the ground up. And what I learned is this: it's never too late to rewrite your money story. But you do have to decide to pick up the pen in order to rewrite that money story. You don't have to do it alone. There are many of us who do this work, and we're here to walk alongside you, not because we are perfect, but because we've gone through it. And we are there to lend a sympathetic ear and to give you the knowledge and the tools to help you recover.
That is awesome. It's never too late to rewrite your money story. I love that. So thanks, Sev, again for joining us on Get Ready Before Life Happens. And thank you, everyone, as always, for tuning into this episode of Get Ready Before Life Happens. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also go to my website at tonystewart.com to join the Get Ready movement and receive access to my newsletter and a whole bunch of free resources. Until next time. Let's change the way we think about money.